Hello and welcome to Irish Manor Stables video on the basics of each gait as well as transitions. I'm joined today by one of my students, Elizabeth, and one of our lesson horses, Smoke. We'll be starting today at the walk and showing you a little bit about how to ride the walk effectively and some of the transitions there, and then we'll be carrying on into the trot and canter. When you're first starting at the walk, you want to be thinking about allowing your seat to follow, allowing the hips to go forward and back, but keeping the rest of your body soft and still. So you can see here Elizabeth's doing a great job. She's following with her arm. So you kind of think about it coming from, if you had an elastic rubber band, from the bit all the way back to the elbows, that you're following with the backs of the shoulders down through that line. And then her core is steady though. We don't want to see anything like the center of our belly like wiggling around like a belly dancer. We want to think about keeping that core engaged and following that way. And then Elizabeth, go ahead and halt. And see there in the halt, she stayed really tall, stretched up a little bit more and engaged those upper abs. Good, and then walk forward. And she walked forward by closing her legs, still keeping the consistency and the feel of the contact, right? You can see here that you want to be looking for that straight line, bit to elbow, following arm, without allowing that arm to get stiff. Elizabeth, go ahead and show us a stiff arm, where you would lock the elbows down and all that tension comes in the forearms. That's what we're not looking for. And you can see Smoke's head gums up a little bit there. And we'll let her ride like that through the short sides so you can see. Go ahead and keep that for a minute. You can see now how there's a broken line right there. Good, and then go back to your normal contact. Yep. Good. And then to encourage your horse more forward in the walk, you want to think about a little bit of left leg, a little bit of right leg, a little bit of sending them forward, thinking about it coming from the calf, so that we have a nice active swing through the walk and swing through the back, which you can see Smoke has here. So this is another common rider fault in the walk, where you kind of want to scrunch up your leg and scooch them forward. You can see actually it does the opposite here. It kind of slows him down. And then go ahead and lengthen your rein and show me a little free walk. So here, this would be great for your start to your free walk. There, go ahead and widen your hands a little bit. What you're looking to do in the free walk is to stretch the head and neck down, and the horse showing acceptance of the contact. Here we can see that Smoke's a little bit distracted today. It's a bit of a colder, windier day, and he just got a fresh body clip, so he's not quite as attentive as he could be. So what I'll have Elizabeth do is go ahead and gather him back up to the medium walk and close her leg and send him a little bit more forward, and then pick that back up a little bit later in the ride. If your horse isn't as acceptant of the contact, when they don't look for it, they don't seek it when you go long in your rein, don't go so long in the free walk. Let your reins stay a little bit shorter. Try to encourage a little stretch. But if it doesn't happen, pick it up a little bit later. And then here Elizabeth will demonstrate for us a 2-point at the walk, which is a great rider stretch and really good work for the balance. Go ahead and 2-point. So you can see here she's got a great line, shoulder, hip, heel. Her seat is back, so she's over the center of the saddle. The core is engaged, so there's not an arch in that lower back, and the lower leg is still staying in contact. Now the greater challenge here as you're doing your 2-point at the walk is that your horse likes to slow down in most cases. Some horses, some of the hotter horses, will want to go a little bit more forward, but Smoke is pretty used to our shenanigans here as a lesson horse. So think about closing your calf a little more and sending him more forward in the walk, keeping that core engaged so we don't rock forward. Now, to transition up into the trot, one of the things that you want to be thinking about is keeping that rein connection, keeping that elasticity through your elbow as you close your calf and send the horse forward, keeping the core engaged so that as they go to kind of jump forward into the trot, right, that you don't feel like you lose your balance and tip forward or fall back. When you're ready, go ahead and pick up your trot. Crop against your thigh and trot. Squeeze them up with that calf. There we go, that was nice. Good, and then once you're up in the trot, then you can check your diagonal like Elizabeth did. Another common fault is that we want to check the diagonal right out of the gait. Let yourself get a trot. Now here, Elizabeth is doing a really good job in her balance as far as staying soft in that knee and thigh and long and down into that lower leg. And we can see that there's an appropriate amount of fold in her hip so that she's staying with the motion. Elizabeth, go ahead and get a little behind the motion. So here we can see how it turns into a little bit more of like a thrusting forward with the hip. And that's what we don't want to see. Good, and then go ahead back to your normal. And then show me the wrong diagonal, please. Here, when you pick up your trot and you aren't sure about your diagonals, this is an incorrect diagonal that you're seeing here. So here Elizabeth's moving, going up when that inside leg goes forward, which is incorrect. And go ahead and switch it back. To change it, you're going to sit for 2, and then you're right back on it. You can see again how she's going up with that outside front leg. And then we're going to have her go into a little sitting trot for us. It's important that when you start out your trot work, you don't go right to sitting because you need to warm up the horse's back. You need to let their muscles loosen up. All right, Elizabeth, when you're ready, go into your sitting trot. And here what you're looking for again is the hips are absorbing the motion. That forward and back, you're still staying tall and breathing, and that lower leg is staying steady. And the hands are following forward and back, they're not going up and down. Not like a bobblehead. Good, and then go ahead back to your post. All right, the next thing you can do once you've played around with getting yourselves loosened up and you've got a good working trot going here, like Smoke is showing, is playing a little bit with collecting and lengthening the trot. And this is an exercise that I'll even do on some of my slower horses as it sharpens them up. So, Elizabeth, when you're ready, go ahead and collect the trot. To collect the trot, you're going to think about slowing your post a little bit, but keeping your leg closed so he doesn't walk like he does there. That's a really common fault. So you want to find that balance between a little half halt, getting a little taller with your upper body, slowing your post, yet keeping enough leg to keep that balance, even a little more. There. There. Good. And then go back to your working trot. So you can see how the balance picks up a little bit. And then let's go ahead and lengthen the trot. To lengthen the trot, you want to think about keeping that connection again and closing your leg a little bit more sharply, a little more firmly. Squeeze them forward out in front of you. Try not to post super high or get into any thrusting through your hips. Thrust through your hips like that. We don't want that, right? Because then he actually kind of sucks back and he bulges a little bit because it doesn't feel as comfortable. Good, and then back to normal. And back to our working trot. And then let's collect again. So there, she did a better job supporting him as he collected. Good, good keeping that frame. And then go ahead and send him more forward, lengthen. And if he's a little bit dull there, she'll give him a tap with the stick, tap with the crop, and kind of help send that forward. There, there. That's getting a little bit better in the lengthening. Alternatively, if you have a horse where he gets a little bit dull in the change, then you're going to really collect it back again. Make it as slow as you possibly can. Yep. And then lengthen. Keep those fingers, keep that inside shoulder up. There, there, there. And that's gotten a little bit better. So you have to know what you can expect from your horse in terms of that. Go ahead back down to your walk. Good. And then that actually helped in a nice downward transition where He stayed more balanced and engaged with the hind end thanks to a little bit of that collecting and lengthening work. And she did a good job sitting and following with her hip and keeping the contact while keeping that lower leg underneath her so she didn't brace with that foot out in front of her. And now she's going to show you a bit of a bad transition from the trot to the walk, where you haven't, or excuse me, from the walk to the trot and then down from the trot to the walk. So you can see examples of where you don't have quite the right balance of connection with your rein and leg. So when you're ready, go ahead and pick up your trot. You can see how he kind of wanders. She gets real stiff with her arms, throws the reins away. And here you can see how his pole is going below his wither. That's too much of a downhill balance. And then walk. And then there she tipped forward and dropped the contact. And he just kind of wandered and now has a sluggish walk. So that's what you want to be thinking about when you're schooling transitions. You want to be schooling your quality transitions. If you get a transition that you don't like, figure out, did my position stay the same? Did it change? Did I keep the right amount of rein contact? Was my leg steady enough? If not, let me go back and fix it. You don't want to drill the transitions, but you want to make sure you're schooling quality transitions. All right, when you go into the 2-point at the trot, it's actually a little bit easier because you just have to kind of fold your hip a little extra, and that's really it. So this is really nice here, how she's keeping a nice straight line, shoulder, hip, heel, and the core engaged. What I don't want to see is go ahead and lean up the neck, is where you're down here, you're kind of leaning on your hands for support, right? Now go ahead back to your normal. You want to be able to feel like you've got that core engaged. Your hands can go forward, back, down as appropriate, and you're staying really balanced. So here Elizabeth is going to prepare and ride a canter transition. For the best canter transition possible, you want to make sure that you have a trot that has some engagement here, that he's moving nicely forward into your rein contact. And then as she goes to sit, making sure that she breathes and stays following with her hips and following with her arms into the canter. When you're ready, Elizabeth, go ahead and ride your canter. So here, this is a nice forward trot. We can see Smoke starting to get engaged in that hind end. And then there, really smooth transition. Elizabeth's doing a good job again, following with those hips, following with her arm, but keeping her core engaged to balance. And then when you're ready, bring him back to trot. So to trot, she's going to get a little taller through that upper body. Yep. Close the leg and send him forward. Good. And as you're going to prepare to ask for the canter transition, you want to think about keeping your inside leg at the girth, keeping the bend of the horse to the inside as you sit and slide that outside leg back just like an inch and sliding it back from your hip. Here Elizabeth is going to show you asking for the canter from the walk. All right, so here we have a nice uphill canter balance and a beautiful upward transition there. She did a great job of supporting him with that inside leg into that outside rein. All right, so here Elizabeth's going to show us how to not ask for your canter because she won't have prepared him well and she'll be bracing against him. So there you can see her leg kind of slide forward, her kind of hunch up into it. And then there, as she's trying to follow, you can see that leg got a little bit wonky. She's kind of overly following with her upper body too far forward and kind of rowing with her arms rather than allowing him to move her arm with his head and neck. Okay, and then back to your downward transition, we're going to see that that downward transition is going to be not as balanced based on how she rode the canter. So we got really heavy and kind of fell forward. Here Elizabeth is going to show us asking for your canter on the straightaway and identifying your lead. And there's your lead. And again, you can tell it's the correct lead because that inside front leg is the one that is leading into the canter. So here, Smoke picks up the incorrect lead, which you can tell because the outside front leg was the leg that was leading. Here, Elizabeth is demonstrating a collected canter, doing a really good job of using her body. And then here you can see a lengthening in the canter, lengthening the stride, opening up her hip angle a little bit, or excuse me, closing her hip angle a little bit. There we go. And then here Elizabeth is demonstrating our 2-point at the canter. Again, keeping that lower leg against him, the balance with that seat over the center of the saddle, shoulders tall.